Welcome back, you guys. Today we're reviewing a few of the cars I've owned in the past and what I like to own in the future. Today I have my beautiful 2006 M5 and we're going for a drive. I thought we'd review some of the cars I've owned and what I'd like to own in the future. So I did sell my 997 GT3 just last year. It was a great car and I owned it for 3 years. I had my time with it, but it was time for a change. Honestly, I didn't want a black car to start off with, but I bought it from one of my good friends here. So I bought the car rather than the exact spec that I wanted. Kind of like what I talked about with TJ in the last video. It's always good to buy the correct car and not exactly the spec, but not one that was super well maintained, for example. The Porsche market is also really finicky, so you always want to buy something that you actually do want to keep long term because the resale market is a little bit tough, to be honest. But the cars that I've owned in the past that were notable were a few other M3s. I owned another Z4M coupe that was in white that I really loved. I was actually about to buy a red one recently, but it wasn't, once again, the exact car I wanted, so I thought I'd hold out for another one. I considered a Z3M, but one of my friends who owns a coupe here, Dawson, he kind of told me about the little issues that you have finding parts and whatever. Also, my friend Nick in the States has done a really good job with his car, but I know finding parts and stuff can be pretty troublesome. So I wasn't really interested in trying to find a car that's gonna be hard to find parts for. I mean, everything NLA pretty much. BMW doesn't make anything for the Z3M anymore. Interior trim, etc. whatnot. Forget about it. You're not really gonna find it. So I think it makes more sense to find another Z4M coupe. That would make more sense. I did actually own about 3 or 4 E46 M3s after my blue one. The Mystic Blue that I have is technically my first car. So after that, I did add a Interlagos Blue. It was a 2005 compact with only about 30,000 miles or 50 kilometers. It was SMG. I made that car in pretty much pristine condition. I was considering transfer stuff over from the Mystic car and rebuilding that, but it didn't really make sense. The car had like parking sensors on the rear bumper. It was SMG, of course, and once again, it would have been another blue car. The only benefit of really doing that is I would have had a lower mileage car, but it didn't make a whole lot of sense. I did also own a 2001 Carbon Black M3. That was also very nice. It was manual. That one I really enjoyed. I was building it to actually be a track car, and shortly after, I actually found the Z4M coupe. That one was a very nice car. Sorry to go back to the Carbon Black. That had 60 miles or about 100K. The Z4M that came up, it was a really rare find because it had 40,000 kilometers or 25,000 miles around when I found it. So since that came up, I thought, okay, I might as well try and buy this car and enjoy it. So that's what I did. I had the Carbon Black for maybe about a year. The Z4M coupe I had for about a year and a half or more. And the only reason I sold that car was to fund the GT3. Now that the GT3 is gone, I've kind of been in a lull of what to buy next. It's pretty tough to decide. I think another 997 would be good, but I think trying something new would be good. Another Z4M would be good, like I was mentioning, but it's kind of repeating. I was looking into C6 Z06s. My buddy Damon in LA actually highly recommended it. He likes it more than his 991 GT3, so that was an interesting thing to hear. So that's an option. I was considering a Ferrari F430. Of course, it'd be an F1 gearbox and then swapping it to manual. But the only issue with that car is in our taxes locally, that falls into a higher bracket for insurance, etc. So it's a little bit annoying. I don't really want to buy a car that, you know, actually would be cheaper than the GT3, but then the insurance costs a lot more. So that doesn't really make sense. And by a lot more, I mean like 3 times the amount I was paying on the GT3. So it's a little bit tough to decide. I think if the Ferrari F430s, they generally come down and fall into the lower bracket of insurance, then that could be a car I could consider, but I'm not really sure what would be the next one. Thought I would give you guys a nice POV angle driving this car. thought it'd be worthwhile to talk about kind of what the next plans for these cars are. The M5, if you recall, we were talking about doing the big brake kit, so that's something that I hope to do this winter. I know I put it off for a couple years, so once we get that sorted, this car will be all done. I don't really have anything else that I want to do to it after that. I've contemplated changing the wheels here and there, but as you do, you want to change shoes. The E46 M3, that's all done. As you saw in our last videos, we've done a bunch of stuff. I did kind of all the final little things that I wanted to do. I do have my buddy Kenny needing to do a little thing like on the door cards that I wanted to fix, and after that, that car's done. I was actually considering supercharging that car, but don't worry, I would actually keep it NA. The 92 M3 for my brother's car, that's all done as well too. We talked about doing some Sportster CS in that, but I don't think it really makes a whole lot of sense for him. Those seats are already in great shape. The car only has like 40K miles or so there's no real need to change that for him. So I think those cars are done. The 997 that I had, that one had the carbon buckets. It had BBS E88s. I did the Sharkworks straight pipe exhaust, lowered a little bit more on the factory coilovers. It still retained the PASM. That car was all nice and sorted. So going on to a new car, it's kind of hard to get anything that's going to be remotely the same. I thought I might as well try something that's, you know, American for once. The German market, I'm not super interested in the Audi or Benz equivalents. I wish that the Audis were a little bit nicer for the manuals, and for the Benz cars, I wish that they even had a manual. So I think the only way that makes sense is going up from there. So if you guys have any recommendations in terms of supercars or whatever you like, that'd be interesting to hear. I think the Audi R8 has been kind of done over the years and not super interesting anymore. The V10 manual is a great car, and I still would consider that. It's very reliable and very usable, but there isn't a whole lot you can do that car. Wheel-wise, it's actually a little bit hard to fit anything on the Gen 1. The Gen 2s definitely have a lot more options and they look a little bit nicer, but for the first iteration, there isn't a whole lot you can do. So I'd love to hear what you guys think. Drop your comments below and I'll read them, and we'll figure something out together and see what we do. So checking back in on the E46, it's a little bit tough to do anything else to this car. I have contemplated over the years doing a carbon roof, but I'm one of those people that actually enjoys having the sunroof. Having an extra bit of light is pretty nice. Going back to the interior, can't really do anything else, honestly. I was considering doing the carbon door cards for the CSL ones. There's an option of doing the CSL center console, but the issue is when you do that, then you lose your armrests. So the drivability and stuff gets a lot more, uncomfortable, let's say. This one already having the armrest delete is nicer for shifting, but if you lose that and your armrest on the door, then there's nothing else really to do. So it's a little bit tough. I don't know if you guys have any other ideas or anything, I'll consider them. I was, toying with the idea of doing like the upgraded diff or something like that for the 391. There's a possibility of, doing cams, etc. on the engine, but anyone that I know that's opened the engine has always had issues down the road. It's pretty tough to do any, reliable builds. So I'd rather just leave it, I think, the way it is. Anyways, thank you guys for watching today. If you guys have any options, drop them in the comments below and I'll be sure to read them all. Take care.